I keep asking myself every couple of days if my view has changed on that. But the more we go in here, I really don't think there's a lot that's going to be different. Now, I have to, of course, explain what that means, but I'm not sure if I've spoken to you about that in a different way, but I'll say it again. We got to remember the embedded cultural concept of fitness, and what it was like. And that doesn't just shift in a period of economic diversity changes or insecurity feelings, or even, unfortunately, deaths, or, questions to health and immunity. And so the argument would be, well, I mean, it's a long period of time, but it's not really. So, you got to remember, we're generations deep into these behavioral ideas to what fitness is. Mm-hmm. Is there an opportunity for agility and changes and shifts in the market? Is there an opportunity for that? Yes, but I think it's really marginal. As measured by what's your definition of impact and change. So yes, months down the road, I don't see a lot of different things happening. If there'll be a number of people that won't make it through, businesses, microgyms close, etc. That's a fact. That's reality. But then you got to remember, for those, let's take it as an example, as an avatar, 3 microgyms in Atlanta, right? There's 450 clients that are going to do what now? You really think they're all going online, going Peloton, and then working out, through TrueCoach applications and getting up to speed on working on? No, they've got 20 years, all 450 of them, they got 20 years deep inside their head as to what fitness is. It's not going to change in this period of time. They want to go back and get embedded inside of that, whatever it was previously that got them to there.
Love it.
So that's what I think really, that's what I think what the change may seemingly look like. And I think, just Sam, you and I, it's fairly easy for us to sit in our spot right now and say, oh, this is what change is going to be, because I'm a part of a company that does digital education. You're a part of that, manana that takes this information from this technical component to a coach's brain and creates conversation inside of it. So we're definitely in a different seat to make points on what that will look like. But that's why I choose the that example.
Nice. Well, let's jump into it. Here we go. What's up, everybody? Welcome to TrueCoach TV. I'm your host, Sam Pogue. I'm sitting here in beautiful Boulder, Colorado, getting to talk to the one, the only Mr. James Fitzgerald, owner, founder of OPEX and Big Dogs, winner of the first CrossFit Games, and just an incredibly great person that loves education and helping people, and loves to find out how we can, find the root cause and how we can help affect change. And we're going to be talking about where the future of microgyms are going, and especially high-intensity microgym offerings are going now that we're coming out of COVID, or some places are starting to opening things up, and what we can start looking forward to in the future and how we should start handling things going forward. Really excited to learn from James's expertise. He's going to be presenting this material from a coach's standpoint. So while he doesn't necessarily own a micro gym anymore, he obviously works with hundreds of coaches, thousands of coaches around the world who do own micro gyms. He's done it before and is educating now from a different standpoint. But we'll be looking at it from the coach's lens of perspective, looking at where do we need to go coming out of this to be successful going forward. So without further adu, Mr. James Fitzgerald, thank you for making time for us. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for the opener, Sam. That makes me sound like a really kind person. I really appreciate it. I think you actually said in there at one point, I think you really said he's a really good person. So that's really nice. But we should preempt, I certainly do take a lens of a coach's eye. And I have owned a number of different micro gyms previously. And I do currently run a system that has micro gyms around the world. And I do coach coaches who are in multiple different varieties of micro gyms. So I want to just pinpoint where my lens is, but also what my biases are and where I come into that conversation on. In the way that I, would reach out into the future, we can't look past the current point in time to answer your question. Like, what will that micro gym environment look like? So we got to be like, yeah, what's happening right now? COVID's happening right now. I do get it that, there's economic insecurity, and I do get it there's a survival mode, and I'm not speaking past that point. But I really don't think there's much massive changes that are going to occur in what dictates how fitness is delivered today. And that is largely based around the behaviors of the general population and their perception of what fitness is. So this period of time is not going to make a significant change in what's going to happen in 2 months, 3 months, 18 months, pre-vaccine, post-vaccine, whatever your conversation is of the new normal. Things are just going to get back to work in alignment with what was. And I don't think that's going to be a major change. And you and I can hammer on that point a little bit more. I think the future, meaning like now, I think is an unbelievable opportunity of a period of time to have presence and breath, and for us to take a big, deep breath and say, what will the future possibly look like, right? And I've created some ideas that I've taken some notes on to say why it will look like that for the microgym environment, because of the behaviors of the past decade in terms of where microgym is going, because all the money that's invested in the churn, right? People make money on that entire system, big gym settings, micro gym settings. As much as we uncomfortably want to look away from that, the money is made on that from the owners or the owners of the owners who just know that transactions and a treadmill of people going in and out of a turnstile is how that system makes money. So you cannot turn your back on that. How are they going to shift and be agile to make more money in the future? General intelligence, robots, and screens, or whatever you want to call it. It's not a human running in the front of a fitness class. They're going to come into a setting, their heart rates are going to be set up, VR, whatever it is, right? And you're like, oh, that's 30 years down the road. No, that's within a couple of years, because this system now, like all of us, needs to take a big breath and say, what will the future look like? And so if I'm thinking 2 or 3 years, not just in 6 months, Sam, to answer your question, it looks like micro gyms lose the human element. And how do we know this? There's 3 points. The current scale and speed in technology is faster than what we can cognitively think about. Okay, so just take a second to think about that. Remote is a real thing right now. Like, that's a thing, and that is added to the answer of my predictions around what the future will look like. And 3, the majority of fitness users, as much as we hate to think about it, are unconscious. They're unconscious users. So is there 10% out there that are conscious that will need to have a coach and want relationships and et cetera? Yes. Yes. And if you hear this, you're like, okay, that's where I want to go in my direction. That's fantastic. But to answer your point, what does the future look like? In the near future, not a hell of a lot different. In the further future, the micro gym environment is going to be taken up by general intelligence and scaled tremendously, so the human relationships are out of it.
Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, coming out of this in 6 months, I mean, while there won't be as great of changes as what maybe people are anticipating, like we kind of joked about before, like the world's not going to jump to Peloton in 6 months from now and like completely abandon what we know as fitness today. Nope. But people will have hesitations around it. There will be some shift, whether it's great or not. How are you educating your coaches and your boxes and your micro gyms about how to plan for the next 6 months and coming out of this? What are you helping them prep with?
Yeah, it's not a really secret document. We got to remember though that our previous position in the market for what we decide upon as a real relationship in fitness is very personalized already. So what am I telling my crew, as to the other side of it, is like, keep it personalized. Yeah. Respect everyone's opinion. Follow government regulations. Be safe. Do no harm. Help people increase their strength for their lifestyle. Do you know what I mean? Like that. So you can see it's not that much different than what we were doing previously, right? I think where the challenge in there, Sam, which is the reason why you're asking it, is that people are going to have to do seemingly this big shift now, right? To your point, like I went through that in the late 90s. I'm not sure if you remember, but everyone got a home treadmill, right? And it was like, oh, people are buying these treadmills, $6,000 at home. Does that sound familiar? All those
stuff in everybody's basement holding clothes.
Oh, all that turned into is clothes hangers. So everyone virtue signaling these online pellet. That's great. Guess what? 6 months, they're going to need to come to your micro gym to get some instruction because their Peloton has turned into a clothes hanger, right? Not everyone is like 26 Uber executive living on the 26th floor in New York City with their Peloton looking out the window, right? That's a small part of the audience. So I think that over time, that's just going to end up looking like that, and people are going to need to come back to it. So to answer your question, what are we telling people? To just teach people, react to people personally like you always did, right? Treat them as a human. Treat them as like, where were you in this before, and how do I help you moving forward? And just take into consideration, you're probably going to have an extra couple of seconds to be more empathetic, more compassionate, and to be more personalized. Now, if some people who are in a group environment now have to transition to that, that's probably a nice springboard conversation for us, Sam, on like, well, what should they do? What should they do next based upon that, right? Because that's a whole other thing.
Well, and that's just it, right? Like, I think it's fair to say, and this is obviously making a generalization, that if you were not making the conversation personal beforehand, that's probably why you're having some difficulties during this transitional time.
Oh, yeah.
The relationship wasn't built around like, oh, you're looking out for my whole holistic lifestyle, not just like smashing my ass in the gym, right? Yeah. And so now it's like, yeah, well, they might have liked that smashing because it was on the way home from work. It was fun. Like, they got to be around people. When that was taken away, the need for it was no longer there, right? The want, the unconscious want of like, man, that really feeds me. Now it's like, oh, there's so many other distractions. And like that text is like, hey, you don't want to do my online program? You're like, bro, I've got like kids, I got a job, I got like shit in my life going on. Like, I don't even know you that well. Like, you know what I mean? Versus with an individual personalized relationship where it's like, hey, James, like, I know you had a 4-year-old at home. I know you want to play, but like, hey, can we get you out for doing a 10-minute walk in the sunshine with your 4-year-old in the morning to help get you like out in a better rhythm? And, you know, maybe have a glass of water first thing in the morning before you start slugging coffee, like making those conversations around what they actually want in life. And that's the coach or the gym that realized like, oh, 90% of my members stayed. And they were willing to go through with whatever solution I came up with to deliver an experience because they loved me. Versus like, oh, you were preaching mechanical stress and progressive overload, and now, wait, oh yeah, the sandbag or like a water bottles on your hips doing glute bridges is still just as good, right? Like, you know, so, you know, there is that. And that's just, you know, we can sit and this is a whole different conversation, but that's an argument to where you and I would love to see coaching just go. Like, we talk quite a bit, you know, about coaching, but that's the lack. A lot of places aren't being taught how to be coaches. And you touched on this idea of group fitness, and then now having to jump into personalized coaching. What is that difference, and what should they be doing?
Yeah, man, this is where we have to move that argument and answer, is that you need to know where this tension comes from, because it just makes sense that a coach should just teach someone, right? It's like, oh, that just makes sense. Coaches teach someone. Yeah. Well, the powers that be that run all these systems don't want the coach making a lifestyle inside that system. Now, that's a harsh statement, but that's reality. And I have lots of proof to show that, but they just want transactions. They want churn, right? So the people that argue that point are what? Owners that don't coach, right? How hard is that to hear, right? That really pisses people off. But we need to go there to answer your point or to make a point on what coaching is so we can personalize it, right? Yeah. If there's no system set up to create a professional setting for a coach, it's the fucking system's problem. It's not the coach's problem or the brand's problem. It's the system's problem, right? So that's why I worked backwards. I was like, okay, we burnt all these coaches. That system sucks. I got to get out. I created this thing in 2010 to give it, and then no one wanted to buy it. Like, I mean, sure, we had lots of people go through it, but that's not a big number. So we should ask that question. Why doesn't everyone want to just get the principles? You know why? Because there's no system set up that's going to support personalization. There's been a number of people that virtue signal that they've fixed that problem, right? All they've done is duct tape the group system. All they've duct tape it. Multiple service offerings, do this personal training, end up getting people in group, right? That's all good and admirable, but that doesn't fix the answer to how do you professionalize the coach, right? The coaches inside that microgym environment are oppressed. They can't have any say. If they do have any say, they get kicked out because they can get another person to come in and hit a time clock, right? So if that coach actually wants a profession, they look out there, Sam, there's nothing for them to wrap their hands around and get excited around, right? Yeah. They're like, oh, I just got to be a monkey, stand up in front of a class for 3 years, making $20 an hour 3 times a day. That's not going to cut it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, the options are minimal. Yep. So the system is the issue. There's no system in place for your point on how do you become personalized and professionalized. It's unfortunate that the system is just not there for those coaches.
Yeah. Well, it's unfortunate too, if you guys pulled back and looked at this same conversation through a business lens, human capital is your most expensive thing you will ever work with. So if you're really a business owner working with a microgym and you're thinking coaches are interchangeable and you're like, oh, just a new one comes in, the hiring and firing of coaches is more expensive for you in the long run than actually like giving that coach a raise or giving them an opportunity to have something where they can dig themselves into and like grow, right? Like I explain it to mid-level good gyms that have like nice businesses, but like aren't trying to franchise out, where it's like, hey, your top level trainer is like your guy, right? Oh yeah, he runs my business. Yeah, I bet he's getting bored. I bet someone else has made him an offer or her an offer. And I bet he or she's looked at maybe starting their own thing, which most coaches have. So why don't you install an individualized remote coaching business to where you can let that coach run it, teach the other coaches how to program, oversee the programming. Now that coach has a business unit that they're installed, and you got to keep your top level coach. Sure, you don't make as much as him coaching a one-on-one session here and there. You don't make as much him jumping into a group class, but the value of him staying or her staying supersedes that, like, oh shit, now I got to raise another top dog to do all my stuff. Like James, you guys run a business. If you lost Jim tomorrow, how expensive is that for you? Or if you lost Carl tomorrow, how expensive is that for you?
Oh, don't even talk about those things. You're putting it out into the universe now. That's so inappropriate. You're not a kind person, Sam. The way that we come up with that, what's going on in your head, that's an unbelievable option. I like it. But what you're talking about, Sam, is creating a story arc of what it is to be a coach forever. Totally. Technician, craftsperson, master. It's a reality, right? And so people want to look into fantasy and be like, oh, you just go out there and you just do it, get these courses and it's just done. No, there's actually like a step-by-step approach that we know to be true based upon the current environments inside. We also, as OPEX, say things like this. We dictate success. Remember that, right? Success, impact, whatever it leads to for that. We dictate success by this. The owner makes money so they can invest back in the business. The coach makes money so they can put braces on their kids. And the client reaches autonomy long-term. That's our definition of success. In most microgym environments, no one cares about this person, right? And there's lots of data to show they actually don't lead to autonomy because they'll find something new in 3 years on most people, right? Yep. So no one asks this question, to your point, what does the profession look like that dictates success, right? And I just use that beacon of like putting kids on or putting braces on your kids because there's a lot of shit that goes into that commentary. First of all, you got kids. Second of all, you need time in the day. Third, I get my point. You got to have capital based upon that. So you need to find this like story arc. And if people are like, well, I don't know what it is, tell me, create it for yourself, right? Create it for yourself. Meaning like you're 2 years in, good. You got 25 years left. That's a fact. Like you need to think hard about that. And if immediately you go, I never got in for that, great, get out. Because you're not helping the entire process, right? You're actually making it more chaotic for the 1 year to 5 year coach, like restaurant owners who just like fall and die, right? But the ones who actually mean it, who got the full system set up and who actually want to do it effectively so they see this big long-term career, they'll start taking these steps at year 1, 2, 3, 4 because they know exactly what they need to do for that story arc to get to the craftsperson, to get to the master in terms of coaching. And as I mentioned earlier, which sounded kind of underhanded, but it's true, those coaches are oppressed because they don't have a voice or someone to say, this is the story. This is what it should look like for you, right? Instead, they're just like, what do I do? What do I do? Oh, I got to go over here. Okay, I got to learn that. Okay, I got to learn that. What do you got to go over? Well, this is what you do. And their answers as to why you're doing what you're doing is like, oh, that's just what you do right now. No, that's not just what you do right now. You need to follow these step-by-steps approach, right? From the tech craftsperson into the master long-term.
Yeah, no, it's a journey, right? Like you and I have been through it, and yes, you've been in it a decade longer than I have, but it's like, you gotta, I hate to sound like the crotchety old guy, because I'm 33, so I live partway in the, like, I didn't grow up with tech. My parents didn't have like internet until like I was a junior in college. And then with the internet, where it's like, oh, I went to college where there's portals and you do your homework online and shit like that. So I live in both worlds, but I very much come from this like, shut the fuck up and work really hard. Right? Like, that's just like, I haven't had it easy. Like, I've had to get my ass beat to move across the country a couple times to figure things out. And now I'm here. So it's like, you want me to feel like you need this to, like, this is the thing that's going to help you? I don't, like, go learn. Right? But on the other end, there's so much education out there. And I get that most people aren't going to go in like, what do I need to do? What is the next step? I don't have that skill. Oh, I don't know how to sell. I need to go learn how to sell. Oh, I should learn more about programming, or my programming isn't as good as I think it is. Like, people aren't asking these questions. And I think that's such an integral part of understanding about where the industry needs to go. Because and I don't mean this to be mean, because I I'm sad that really good people are going to go out of business right now. But the industry is going to change a little bit in that now some people are going to have a fresh start, right? Coming out of this and being able to like jump in and like, hey, here we go. And that means I want the industry to get better, right? You and I are in this because I fully believe you're not allowed to bitch about where the industry is at unless you're willing to do something to help. And that's what we're both doing.
You're trying to do something.
Trying to do something to help. Yep.
Yeah.
And we're here like, that's what we do, right? So like, I think this is such an integral piece for coaches, like understanding this story arc and like understanding that you have to go through this maturation process of getting better is the process of you developing long-term career success in this that makes you that you're not reliant on like, what's the model right now? Just group hit. Okay, I'm going to go teach those 3 classes a day versus like, no, you're a personal trainer. You're individual design. You're a coach, right? Coach being the cognitive word here to where it's like, what does that mean? And it doesn't matter what you're delivering. I don't care if you're a NASCAR sports performance coach or a baseball performance coach or helping Grandma Betty get able to do shuffleboard better. Right? A coach is a coach and you're just guiding that process. So it doesn't really matter where the application or what you're doing. What matters to me is how you're doing it.
Yeah, and there's no real measure that says what is right and what is wrong in that, but the truth comes in over time. When people just try to do that over time and they're just guessing on it, it's not going to lead to some positivity to it. I feel for the coach who's in that position right now who didn't have a system, because I would tell them really don't change much right now. I know that sounds kind of weird, but they're like, oh, I'm hearing you say all these things about the future and you got to be agile and et cetera. You gotta continue to play the game right now. If there's a well-intentioned micro gym owner out there who's really just scraping by and it might survive, don't change things right now. Right? Don't just think of it, take all emotion aside, whatever I've said, and just say what's best for the entire collective of your tribe and your gym. Don't change things. Like survive on Zoom and do what you got to do. But then when it comes back to being in place, just keep doing what you were doing, right? Regardless of what is truth, right? Don't even listen to my words on what is right and what is wrong and ownership and coaching, whatever. Don't change a thing. And the point I'm making on that, I'm leading into this concept around people moving into individual design or remote coaching. We seemingly think that that's where we should be going now, or like even you and I are talking about for multiple different biased reasons. But that's not a reality. That's a fantasy for a lot of people, right? And so I gave you multiple reasons to why you shouldn't be agile and transition into that. A few that I'll add to it. Number one, thousands of coaches are getting online to do the exact same thing as you are with better quads or like better bras or nicer hair, right? And that's how people are going to be attracted, or they got better money going into a Facebook feed that's going to lead that, right? Secondarily, that doesn't lead towards you developing really good relationships. Right? Now, so if you've been 5 years inside of that micro gym and now you want to be agile, fitness is not like a tech startup, right? Or if it is, you need a shit ton of money. Like I'm talking hundreds of millions behind that like startup to make it move into a scalable generation intelligence driven, concept. So I'll back up. If you're in that position as micro gym owner, don't change a fucking thing right now. And for the future, don't. Survive this thing, get back to doing what you were really good at. Now, maybe come back and listen to you and I talk in 6 months, right? On concepts of what is virtuous for fitness delivery long-term? What is admirable? What is moral? What is ethical in terms of our definition of impact, success, and autonomy for a client? We can get back to it at that point.
Yeah. It's really interesting to look at, you mentioned the 90s, but like also looking at just the general growth of the industry from really its starting point in the 30s and 40s to where we're at now, and looking at, man, it used to only be info products and the Jane Fondas and the Richard Simmons. And then we went really into like, holy shit, look at these strongmen. And then it was like, look at Arnold, look at what we can become, the Lou Ferrignos, the Arnold Schwarzeneggers. And then it became into like, oh, well, this is functional training. This is what athletes need to do. And we're looking at sports. And then it was like, oh, let's make fitness for everybody. And then it kind of went back into individual, the personal training realm. This is where I got into it in the 2008 era, 2008, 9, 10. And then we jumped into like, oh, group fitness, more money per hour, right? 10 people, 20 people per hour. Let's just smash them or like give the people what they want. Do you think that same, like the next step, do you think it's going to be a hybrid between like group fitness and individual design? Or where do you think that game is going to be coming in?
No, your second last statement tells exactly where I perceive it. And I'll be clear on this. I laugh at it because I'm fairly pessimistic in terms of the answer to it. The behaviors won't change, right? It's not moving towards a virtuous idea of autonomy, right? I speak about it, right? And I'd be like, oh, we gotta teach people how to navigate on themselves, right? What's the chance of that happening in my lifetime?
It's not.
Zero. That's just reality, dude. Like, we are humans that have been so physical for fucking hundreds of thousands of years, and now we're not like that. We're not physical anymore, right? So do you expect in our lifetime for people to be like, whoa, I really should get up and move because I can and because it's good for me? You know, like, what the are we really thinking that's going to happen? So no, there's not going to be a massive change in those shifts of behaviors, right? And the people that'll seemingly look like they're making a big impact on it are not. It's just a populist version of it, right? For other, you know, incorrect, malaligned intentions, right? And does that mean that it doesn't like nudge a little bit on movement? Maybe, but not to my defined characteristic of autonomy, meaning people don't need a coach long-term, right? And again, that's where it gets really uncomfortable, but I don't think that's moving in a positive direction, to be completely honest. I can't see any predictions, right? Or anything that's happened in the past 20 years that would give me any indication that people are going to get woke to nature and climbing trees and like creating their own food and, you know, just doing physical challenges without anyone knowing, right? Like I can't see that happening, you know, and I may sound pessimistic, but, and if it inspires some people to be like, damn it, I hate that fact. So I want to try to create that within my clients and myself. Good for you. Like, keep fighting the good fight. We appreciate you. We need you on our side, but it's not going to change a lot. To your second last point, the market right now, we are 3 generations deep in where you said it, 1940s, where they dictate what they're going to do. All the intentions of why we did movement since the 1940s were incorrect intentions, right? Circus acts, strongman, war, look good naked like Arnold, do aerobics because you're not going to be fat, do aerobics because you're not going to die. Those all sound good, and that's the base support of what we've gone on, but they're all incorrect intentions.
Yeah.
So we're at a really weird point where, you know, my children, for example, have 3 generation deep of thoughts in there on exercise that I am continually, every day, every time we do exercise sessions, I'm not attaching any intention to it other than discovery, right? It's like, this is your body. These are what happens when you do these challenges, right? Dad, why is my friend and her mom going vegetarian? Well, that's a great question. You know, let's talk about intentions. Let's talk about why you'd want to do it. Let's also talk about where they came up with that competency idea to do that. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, this is how I'm approaching it. Not a right or wrong, but guess what? My daughters are going to ask me that same thing in 2 weeks, right? Because we're so deep entrenched on the incorrect intentions inside of all of it. It's exhausting to even discuss, to come up with remedies as to what changes that. I was hopeful in a weird kind of way, without any loss of deaths. I would be hopeful that a virus would spread across, right? And people would all of a sudden get bad backs or back pain, not die, but have back pain, right? And then you get 7 billion people who are like, this fitness thing is probably pretty important, right? and all of a sudden people start waking up to this idea. So unfortunately, we had mortality as a question inside of it. And that's really shitty, especially if fitness now tries to prey on those people, be like, you're supposed to be fit and that's what's not going to make you sick. Like that's shitty too, right? So anyways, that was a roundabout ideas to the intentions. I don't see it going in a positive direction, Sam.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned being pessimistic. And I think where you and I get along well is that you and I would rather just like spark the like the match and put it out and like get you to like, I don't care if you're mad at me or you don't like what I said, but if it fires you up to go make change, awesome.
Go do it.
Be mad and go change. That's all I give a shit about.
Prove me wrong, right? Yeah. Prove me wrong on that. And I should say on the back of that, it's not like I'm back room here not trying to help good intentions with coaches, right? I do it daily, hourly, weekly, 24/7. That's my vision, right? Yep. So I don't just say that with a knee jerk. I'm sitting at home now just like fucking around for 8 hours a day. And then I come on here to a YouTube video and be like, yeah, let's jam and kind of light people up. That's not my background. I am still doing work to fix it, but I'm also a realist. I'm a cynic, but also a realist inside of that.
Yeah.
And to my point, like you just said, thank you. If that fires some people up to say, you know, fuck you, I want to change the perspective on that. Well, good for you. Good for you, right? I will honor that. You won't see me proudly like berating you when you want to talk about that, right? I'm not going to jump on that bandwagon, right? I'm going to be someone that'll share that information, right? As opposed to berate it.
Yep. Yep. No, it's so important, you know, that, and I just want people to get better, right? That's it, right? And I feel very blessed that I've had great people around me that have pushed me to become better consistently throughout my life. And, you know, you got to always, I look at things where you have to be in a spot where you're ready to help everyone, like that person. And you're not always in a spot where you can help every single person. No. Sometimes that's throwing them a buoy. Sometimes that's like laying a branch down. Sometimes that's like, you might jump in the water and save them, right? But like, you can't save everybody, but like, it would be poor of me to not give you value, right?
Yeah, but the value we're giving are principles on two things, right? Only prescribe what you know, i.e. the tech craftsperson mastery timeline, right? And then you could just fall into principles. So if you have a base of principles as to how people do exercise and why they do it with behavior, exercise, and nutrition, which CCP teaches individuals, right? If you have that base support, and then you just go, geez, you know, how far are they on their journey in fitness and how far am I on my journey of fitness? There's your answer. It's not that complex, right? You got 1 year experience, your client has 1 year experience, and you know CCP, you're only going to prescribe what you know. That's it, and what they're capable of. You know, you could wrap all this magic and fancy shit around the prescription, but it's just principles. Do some resistance to help them have better motor control. Do some aerobic work to teach them sustainable. But high intensity, hypoxic. Why are you asking that question? Where does that come from? That has nothing to do with you being 1 year in or the client being 1 year in and their intentions. Do you see my point? Principles and knowing the story arc journey for both client and coach is the answer. And then you just work down below that. And there's a lot of beauty inside of that. There's a lot of learning in the coach, a lot of learning, but this is where it goes wrong. The coach, because of imposter syndrome or whatever, is like, oh yeah, I can help you because I learned this fancy rehabilitative course, and now I can help all the broken people. Now you're surrounded by broken people and you actually hate them. You resent them, and you see there's a lot of behavioral issues inside of it. Guess whose fault it is? That's your fault, because you shouldn't have been working with them. You don't have the experience based upon what you know. So you learned it from a book in a weekend, but you don't know it because you didn't practice it. So who are the best pain practitioners out there? Those who've worked with people for 10 plus years. Right? Like, you don't have one person be like, I got this course and I got this shit. No, right? Neither do you get a person finished 8 years of university who's like, I got this shit. The smart person at the end of that academic journey is like, we know this to be true, but be really careful when you go here because we're still learning stuff. You see that? Like they won't say they know it because they don't have that 10-year practitioner journey to answer that question. Sorry, I'm babbling on that point.
Oh, you're good.
It's important for coaches to hear that, like, you just got to be okay with knowing what you know. And if you know the principles, be okay with the fact that it'll take a long time for you to learn those pieces. You wrap economy and business around that, and then you know what the future is going to be, you should be okay. Really, you should be okay.
Would you break down that story arc for a coach for us, please? And just kind of give them like, hey, where are we at in our career? Because everybody wants to be where you are. Everybody wants to do their own thing.
It's a loose idea. Not everyone wants to be where I am. You know, people think that, but they don't. They, you know, especially when I ask people, you know, I ask them again and again and again. It's like, oh, so you just actually want success in coaching? Yeah, great. This is what it looks like.
Way easier.
The analogy is that there's no chronological or biological input to start this, by the way, right? So people are like, oh, you're talking technician, craftsperson, master. You must mean you're talking about an 18-year-old. No, I got a lot of really successful people at 42 who start fitness that are some of the best fucking fitness coaches in the world at 45, right? They have human experience. They know the principles. And they know what they do know and don't know, right? Very key point. And they also have this, not cognitive ability, this empathetic ability, right? Because you can see what makes a good coach inside of that. It's the human, not the skills. So it's not a chronological or biological point to this, but the technician is where you start as a coach in a journey. And you're not making a lot of money. I should say that again. You are not making a lot of money. So let's be real on what we mean by that for the technician, right? And if you want to think about it, your reason why you're not making a lot of money, if you are making a lot of money, you probably have time on your hands. You scaled up a system that's going to die in 3 years. That's a really simple way to figure out if you're making money way too fast. So if you're 3 years in, you got a lot of cash, you fucking better get ready for some pain in the future, okay? So for 0 to 7 years, I say, you're learning a ton, you're practicing a ton, you're going away every 3 or 4 weekends to learn shit. You're in the trenches 40 to 70 hours a week, working with people with what you know, etc. You're building your skills, etc. Now, after that technician area, it's not like, oh, I felt it on Monday, I'm a crafts person. It's this transition area into you now developing Sam's own system, right? That's called the crafts person. You've left the like, I'm just working in 3 places and doing all these things and all this time, and I'm kind of formulating these truths. And now Sam's like, this is the fucking real deal. Like the way I do my shit and how I'm operating, I create my own system, right? So now it's a refined system. You're starting to specialize a little bit more in who you're really good at. And I'll just leave it after this point. The crafts person is like, could be 6 years to 12 years, but that's where people would answer, I'm a fucking coach, right? Like when you answered that question 2 years into being a technician, Sam, you were like, well, I'm doing these things. I'm a personal trainer here and I'm trying to build my business and I want to be an entrepreneur, right? You really don't know what you're doing, right? But then after 9 years, you know, someone's like, oh, what do? You go, I'm a coach. It's like fucking really clear. That's what you do. That's what you embody, right? So that's a crafts person that does that for many, many years. As the crafts person develops over time, they now see that they need to teach others because they want to contribute to the collective, right? So they want to see what's my biggest limitation that really makes this impactful because I'm going to fucking die at some point. So they go, you know, I got to teach other coaches. I got to coach coaches around me. I got to learn more about the basics to see what are the truths inside of this. And now you're entering into mastery of coaching, right? Super efficient, very content level of being. And you just keep doing that shit until you pass away. That's basically mastery in coaching, right? And at the far end of it is philanthropical shit, criticizing bad ideas, trying to build the base support, trying to build some philosophies around what is right inside of that journey, right, for coaches. That's what it looks like. And I mentioned those points up here because a coach who's 2 years in is doing this right now, right? Because there's Google, they're like, oh, let's do this for the collective and let's wrap our hands around an organization. No, you should be in the fucking trenches, barely making money, just surviving through this thing, learning shit, right? And you see how hard that is to, that's where we get into the discomfort of like vocation and gig economy and like what we're offered today. We seemingly think that coaching is just like a hustle job, and it's not. You know, it's a 30, 40 year thing, right? That is really beautiful and truly impactful, where you can make some really fucking big dents, right? Even on young 15-year-old male figure skaters, right? You may end up 40 years down the road knowing like fucking everything to know about that group. That is truly impactful. You know what I'm saying? But it took you 50 years to get to that point as a master. Ironically, in a weekend, I'm sorry I'm babbling on it, but ironically in a weekend, guess who's going to fucking show up to your teachings? Me, the young technician. I want to listen to a master because I can extract then all the principles of what this definition is of successful coaching. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Dan Paff is like that, right? You go listen to that guy. You don't fucking need to be a track coach. No, honestly, it's like, you gotta take like 150 deep breaths after listening to that because he throws some deep shit that covers so much knowledge, right? But look at his story. He's a master coach. How did he get there? Yeah, he fucking traveled around the world, chased athletes down, massaged them on his own. Like, he was a technician one time too.
Yep.
You see my point? It's like, oh, so technician, craftsperson, master. Will you make $6 billion? No. If you make a couple of million within the first couple of years, I can tell you, you're going to fail. You or your whole system is going to fail. That's just a fact. So if you're like, well, I created this app and that's success. Okay, then you're going to make thousands of other coaches unsuccessful because you're not teaching them the principles of how this whole journey works over time, right?
Absolutely.
And on the end, people may be asking, well, what happens to the clients along this? Your whole goal inside of that generally is to make people autonomous. That's your whole goal. Get them in, massage them, teach them behaviors. Massage could sound weird, but you know my point. Massage their behaviors, and then you're on your own, right? Why? Because you should be doing that shit on your own, because I want you to teach someone in your neighborhood about exercise so they can come and see me, so now I can massage them again and move them towards autonomy.
Yeah. Something like I tell trainers all the time, like, make it easy for your clients to talk about you, right? Like, they go to work, they have coworkers, they have friends. Like,
yes,
when you go to their family barbecue and they like, oh, you're Sam? I've been hearing about the sled for weeks. And like, oh, it's funny. You know the inside joke between me and Rochelle, right? About the sled, right? And that's just our thing. But like, you're so ingrained, like, you're telling me that you want that. That's why we're having this conversation.
Yeah, it's the relationship they want.
Yeah.
And you got to be educating your clients. Yeah, you got to be educating your clients. That's a fine point. I hope people picked up on what you just said there. Was not the idea of your relationship with her, but the fact that she's getting educated and learning, right? Mm-hmm. So if your clients aren't learning shit all the time, like if you can't answer the question, Sam, in 6 weeks, what was the progression of the sled, right? Mm-hmm. Then you shouldn't be coaching people. That sounds bad too, but that's reality, right? Yeah. If you're just fucking rolling the dice on folks and your client goes, why are we doing this? You're like, and you get uncomfortable, heart rate rises, you don't know the answer to that, you fucking better start finding answers, right? Because you need to be teaching them. Because when they go to speak to their friend Lisa, right? Rachel goes to Lisa, she's like, oh, the sled, my fucking legs. And Lisa goes, I'm not into that really hard shit. And then Rachel goes, well, you know, I'm getting better every week. I'm going a couple of seconds longer. And it's kind of motivating, you know, to be inside there to try to be better. Listen to that, right? Yeah. And Lisa's like, oh, I never thought fitness could be like that. And Rachel's like, no, it's progression, right? I'm learning shit over time, right? And then 2 years down the road, Lisa's like, how's that fitness thing going? And Rachel's like, yeah, I'm teaching my young kid about it now. There's the fucking answer, right? It's like, it's these spider webs you've created in the education that client is unconsciously teaching other people about those principles now. That should feel good to coaches. That's what you should be doing for a contribution.
100%. You know, I wish we got to train the same people forever. I love when my old clients text me and like, my new trainer complimented my squat. And I'm like, that's fucking right. They complimented your squat. They better compliment your squat.
Yeah.
We worked hard on that thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
I fall prey to that numerous times where I was keeping the relationships after 10 years because I just liked them so much.
Yeah.
You know, I'll be honest. I don't sound like a hypocrite. I was like, I just like being around you. I like you coming to visit. I like you training here, you know, but that's the point is that's what I think about, especially for our OPEX gyms. Our coaches really haven't like bought into what that looks like yet because we're only a couple of years deep, but I try to describe it for them as like people will pay for the coaching service and just show up, you know, because they want a place to experiment with movement. Yeah. There's no other place to do it. So they may not have a backyard. They may not have in their high rise a place to do it. They may not have ropes somewhere. They may not have a community of other people who want to do the same. You see my point? So that person 15 years later is going to pay you a service for your coaching per month. You're going to meet with them once a month just to kind of hug and talk about life. And then they're going to come to your gym and they're going to know how to do all their shit, right? So the coaches are like, oh, but doesn't that sound like dependency? No, not at all. They need to still have your kind of direction and guidance because it may take them 30 years to learn this overall concept of autonomy.
Yeah. Well, and you know, to be able to not be so fear avoidance, I don't know if that's the right word, to where you don't want to share what you have because you think that they're going to take and run with it. It's like, you think that person's going to pick up what you learned in 5 sessions and go be you? Like, shit.
Well, I get it. I totally agree with you. But for the coach, I'm more empathetic to the coach who thinks that because the market is so strong today. Right? The market is so strong that their client that they leave will get like preyed upon 12 times on Facebook and come back and have a different message. Yeah. So I'm more empathetic to that coach because they can't control what their client sees in their ecosystem of what fitness is. Yeah. So it takes a constant like, let's just review this again, you know, let's review this again, you know, over and over to get after exactly what the truth is in that.
Yeah. Well, to bring it back to the microgym setting and looking at this, like, I think where most people, whether they don't like the Orange Theories, the F45s, the CrossFits of the world, the bad CrossFits of the world, is that there is the lack of coaching. There is the lack of actual connection. And whether it's individualization to where it's like, you're not going to F45 to like get like a super individualized experience by any means, but like where that succeeds is when the coaches are good. Like you're counting on that person in the front of the room being charismatic as shit and like making people feel welcome. And that's the real big lack of where coaches just, they don't have that skill set. How do you see that? How do you see this new world of group fitness coming in out of this? Do you think that this is going to be like, do you think that coaches have to get better at this right now? Or do you think that people will still just gravitate, to what they already knew without caring?
Yeah, kind of all of that. I think the concept of individualization will still be out there. But I really don't think it'll be an impact in the system, to be completely honest. Because as I mentioned, that micro gym concept, and it's not just those specific groups, it's all kinds of groups that are even not under an affiliate or agreements that are still going to have to put up with that, which means that the human coach up in the front of the room is going to get kicked to the curb.
Yeah.
Right? We're talking tens of thousands of humans, right, that are doing that in a couple of years' time, or maybe 5 or 10, I don't know, you're going to be useless. There's no use for you, right? So this is where and when you say, what's correct or incorrect, that's what you're indirectly asking the question on. We have to, again, go back to what we define as success, right? Because if you're talking about net profit for a group gym, there's a lot of those examples that are really successful, right? But why? Because it's just transactions. Get humans in, get them moving, attach some emotional, social concept to it, and then you're off and running. But no one asks, well, what happens to the coach in that life cycle? How many coaches have you burned and shed in the past 15 years? When people get inside of those questions, that's where it rises all this uncomfort, around what our definition is of success. So back to your point, what will happen to those environments over time? Nothing different than what I originally said. No major changes in behaviors. No one's really going to get, woke to this concept of what fitness is. Could you start learning more about individualization now? Yeah, for sure. No, by no means. But as far as economy, there's going to be way too much pressure for that whole churn and burn system to get sped up again. Simply because that's how the whole system makes money, right? A very interesting thing that I'll just ask coaches to go without telling what the answers are. Go and do like a couple of weeks research as to who are the 3 or 4 parties that own all of the major Globo gyms, right? And find out who these people are and who the money is and where it comes from. First, start there. And then secondly, find out what systems are working during this period of time. If you go and look at those systems, that will also unfold the answer to your question, Sam. What should people do for the future of fitness? I believe it points towards personalization and individualization, but you need to know how everyone and the people who own the system make money. And there's going to be a lot of tension inside of that for you to find a space for you to do it. Ultimately, I do believe, that's why I love the US, based upon free market and getting out there and doing work and it paying off over time. I love the concept that's inside of this country based upon that, which is why I probably landed here. You can feel it in my voice for it. I do like the coach who wants to go for it, has no regulations or constraints, and just wants to do it. But you do need to know what you're moving up against when you go out there, right? So you can build your beautiful individual design, your little gym, and some big gym can plunk a $9 per month system 100 feet down the road. And everyone perceives that system the same as yours. That's fact, right? That's fact. And everyone's like, oh no, I'm different. I'm unique. And I get all, dude, you have no idea as to the answers I said. Who owns the whole system? Go digging hard on that. And how does everyone make money in the micro gym? It's all churn and burn, really. It's sad, but it's the reality.
Yeah. So if someone's listening to this and they're like, oh shit, I understand what they're saying. I may not be in the spot I want to be in right now, but I hear individualization. I hear wanting to get better at creating that relationship. What steps should that coach be doing and where should they be going?
That's a softball. Well, Sam, there's this. I was pretty good at softball too. Like if it was big and just slow, I could hit it. So I'd ask you to go to opexfit.com and get all of our free resources. And if you never end up in front of me, if you never end up in front of me, I still love you as a human, right? But come and get all of our free resources. You'll end up in TrueCoach's lap. You'll have to go that direction, right? So TrueCoach and that. And I could mention some other partners, and you're going to end up falling into loving them as well with that group. But that's where you would go for the principles, right? Principles, only an idea that costs you nothing. It costs you nothing. You can get 3 hours of me on YouTube talking about a flywheel bike that will essentially make you think about all the things necessary for conditioning. Think about that. That's free. That's a free resource, right? That you could actually do that, and an online course costing $59 for strength, right, that we do, that could essentially set you up for the next 30 years. I'm being honest on that from my experience. So go to opexfit.com, go to truecoach.co, yeah, and be on your way. And you'll dig in and you'll smell some stuff and you'll touch things and figure out where you're sitting. But also personally, if you really got a lot of strife, you need to commit to something more. You know what I'm saying? You can only go so free on YouTube before you got to commit. You paying something and like really digging in, that's a true commitment to trying to change your perspective, right? So paying for TrueCoach over a number of months to put clients inside of it, good for you. That's a commitment, right? A paid commitment that shows that you're willing to like move past that tension that you're feeling, right? And if you pay the commitment to do a course through OPEX or OPEX CCP, I will personally guarantee you at the end of it, you will have direction for the next 30 years. I will guarantee it. Now, I can't guarantee that you'll have your own definition of success, but I'll allow you to come up with what that definition is.
Yeah, 100%. Guys, and just to reiterate that, I've taken over 30 courses in this industry, and I've taken OPEX CCP, and it's a business in a box. It is a great course that gives you a holistic picture from assessment to training to the business systems to sales and marketing. And it's a great place for you to come in and develop this system and give you a place that you can learn and you can disseminate value and you can disseminate your own person, like your own personality through the system. It doesn't make you have to talk like James all the time. It's you through the system. So I can't say enough great things about CCP and OPEX and the crew and shit. I mean, if you're struggling with money right now, the amount of free downloads and resources and the emails that you get from the crew is almost, it's overbearing. It's so much. There's so many, like if you want to go in there, like a ton. So please use the free resources, guys. Nothing better from content producers than when someone actually goes and utilizes it and like, oh, that was really great. And you're like, that's why I fucking do it. It's because it's great. So utilize it. These guys put their heart and soul into it. Please go check out their resources. It's great. That's why we have them on here. James, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to chat with us and give us some perspective. It's always great getting to learn from you, and I appreciate our friendship. And I wish you the best of luck today with you and your friends and family and your teams. But without anything else, man, I wish you a great day, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Sam. If we just want to, as a final point, just remember to take care of our coaches.
Yes.
Keep thinking about coaches out there and coaches' value and what that means. Keep pushing, the resistance against the systems that don't want coaches to persevere. Keep, pressuring even educational systems like ours to say, like, how are you taking care of a coach? Or what does that mean, right? And I think if coaches create a voice, I think we could do a bigger impact.
I love it. I love it. All right, bud. Have yourself a great day, man. Enjoy.